Hi guys, welcome back to my channel For Your Heart and Home. My name is Dee Dee. Welcome into my kitchen. Today I'm sharing with you just a few things that I'm working on in the kitchen. We are very excited around here because we are getting ready to celebrate one of my children's birthdays. I will be making birthday cake from scratch using freshly milled flour. As many of you know who've been watching me for a while, we have converted fully to 100% freshly milled whole grain flour, and this is only the second time I'm trying to make a cake using this process. All the birthday cakes I've made before now, I've used flour from the store, but on Father's Day I wanted to push myself and try to make a cake from 100% freshly milled flour, and it came out beautifully. So I'm making the same cake today for my child's birthday. This will be a very basic chocolate cake. It's essentially everything dumped into one bowl and baked off in the oven, and I will also be making the frosting from scratch. So I'll show you in today's video how I put together this cake for her birthday party. As I shared in previous videos, I'm also trying to replace using eggs in my baked goods. And so instead of using eggs in this recipe today, I will be using a flaxseed egg. So to replace flaxseed in recipes, I use 1 tablespoon flaxseed and I dissolve that in 1 tablespoon of water. I allow it some time to bloom, and then I will add it to the baked good that I'm working on. This recipe that I'm using calls for 2 eggs, and so I will be using 2 tablespoons of flaxseed to 2 tablespoons of water. You'll see that I will dissolve that in my cup. I'll give it some time to bloom before I add it to the rest of the ingredients. So I wanted to mill just enough flour to make this chocolate cake, but I always try to mill just a little bit extra because when you're working with freshly milled flour, depending on the temperature in your house, depending on your elevation, some days your flour will look too dry and other days your flour will look too wet. So I always mill just a little bit extra flour just in case I need to adjust whatever batter I'm working with or whatever dough I'm working with. So I took out what I needed for the recipe and I set some to the side just to be sure that I had extras in the event that I needed to add something else to the batter. So I'm just going to combine all the ingredients and pull this cake together. If you're interested in this 1 bowl simple chocolate cake recipe made with freshly milled flour, I will be sure to link it in the description box below. I simply took a very basic chocolate cake recipe and then I adjusted it to our preference, and so I will show that adjustment in the recipe in the description box. Just a note, it's really easy to think when you're following this recipe that your batter is too runny or too wet, but I promise you, if you follow the steps and you measure all your ingredients, this will come out really fluffy and tasty. I've used this for almost 5 or so years at this point. Every single time we make birthday cakes, this is a recipe that I've been using. And this is my second time making with freshly milled flour, and you could not tell the difference between using freshly milled flour and using flour from the store. So this is definitely a keeper and a recipe that I will go back to over and over again. Another tip that I found that has really helped me, we have birthdays all throughout the year, and summer birthdays are always the hardest because it's so warm in my kitchen. And so by the time I start pulling these cakes together and then I go to frost them, everything is melting. So on this day I decided to make the cake ahead of time, and so this was the day before we actually needed the cake for the celebration. And so I'm making the cakes ahead of time, And then I'm going to allow the cakes to cool completely, after which I'm going to do a crumb coat. After I do the crumb coat, I will put it in the refrigerator and let it set overnight. And then you'll see me pulling the cake out in the morning and doing the final coating on the frosting. And this worked out really well for us because the cake wasn't melting, it wasn't falling apart, and it was beautifully put together by the end. As you can see, my batter looks very wet, it looks very runny. Again, do not be discouraged, go with the flow. I am going to put this to the side. This will give the flour some time to absorb some of that liquid, and it will give me time to prep my baking dishes. So you know me, I'm going to put a generous layer of butter on these pans because I do not want my cake to stick. In addition, I'm going to put some parchment paper on the very bottom of these pans, and I am going to lather on the butter. Again, you don't want to go through all the process, go through all the work of putting together a dough or putting together a batter only to have your food stick to your pans. So do not skimp on this step. Lather on that butter to make sure your cake will fall right out of your pans. I've been baking for years, and anytime I do not take the time to really lather on that butter, I am bound to get my cake stuck to the pan. So make sure you put on a generous layer of butter to ensure that your cakes will fall out of your pans. So now that I have my pans sufficiently greased, I am going to pour in the batter. I am taking this batter and I am dividing it into 3 different pans so that I can have a 3-layer cake. If you would rather have a 2-layer cake, you can divide it into 2 pans, or you can just keep it all in a 9 by 12 size pan and make a flat sheet pan type cake. You can use the batter however you wish. For me, I like doing the cake tiers, and so I'm going to use this to make a 3-tiered cake. So I have filled my pans and now I'm going to get this in the oven. So the next thing I'm working on as we prepare for this birthday party is some ice cream. Our birthday parties are not complete unless we have some cake and ice cream. And it's a really hot day here today, and it's promising to be a hot day for the birthday party, and so I wanted to make sure we had some fresh ice cream on hand. I did also pick up some ice cream cones, and so that's just going to add a bit of fun. So once I've pulled together all the ingredients for the ice cream, I'm going to put that in my ice cream maker and let that churn. My ice cream machine takes about 25 minutes or so to pull all the ingredients together, and so while that's going, I'm going to be working on the frosting for my cakes. This is a very basic buttercream frosting that I'm making. It's very simple. It's just butter, powdered sugar, vanilla, and a bit of milk at the end. Now I am doubling the recipe for this frosting to ensure I have enough to both fill the cake and cover the cake twice. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to do a crumb coat on the cake, then I'm going to let that set in my refrigerator overnight, and then the following day I'm going to add another coating over that. So I want to make sure that I have enough frosting to do that. This frosting comes together very, very quickly, and so in no time I'll have the frosting ready to go, and I'll get that into a container ready to use. Okay, so my frosting is done. What I'm going to do now is to transfer it to my container so that when my cakes are done and cooled, I'm able to frost them. My ice cream machine has now gone off, and I am going to transfer this ice cream to the freezer. Again, this could be eaten right away. It's ready to go, especially if you like soft serve style ice cream. But I want to put this in my freezer to get it to harden so that the next day it's easier to scoop and it's not as goopy. Alright, by the lighting in my kitchen, you can tell that it's been several hours and it's now time to start frosting the cake. This is a very, very rich chocolate cake, and we just love the texture, we love the taste, and everything comes together so nicely. The first thing I'm going to do is to put a layer of icing on the very bottom of my cake tier, and then I'm going to flip that over onto the base, after which I will start building the towers up. Now, I am no cake decorating expert. I am really just doing the best I could with what I have here, and so don't come for me. So I made this cake once before for Father's Day, and like I said, it turned out beautifully. The only complaint was that I had way too many chocolate chips in my filler. So this time I was sure to put just a few, not as many chocolate chips inside my layers. I also wanted to make sure that my layers stayed moist, and so you'll see me adding some simple vanilla syrup to the layers, and that's what I have in my red bottle that I'm adding to the layers. I just simply took some sugar and water, and you're going to put that on your stove and warm that so that your sugar can dissolve, and then you can add whatever flavor you would like to that simple syrup. And for this, I added some vanilla flavoring to my simple syrup. And that keeps your layers moist, because as you add frosting, as the cake gets exposed to air, it will begin to dry out. And so the added simple syrup keeps your layers moist and it keeps your cake tasty. So this seems like a really good pausing point for me at this time. Like I said, it was really late at night and everybody was so excited to get to bed because we had to do one more sleep before the party. So this is actually the next morning, really early the next morning, because my children had such a hard time sleeping through the night because they were so excited. So you know what? I said, if everybody's going to be up, I might as well get up and finish the cake. It's maybe really early in the morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock maybe, and I'm putting on the final coating of the frosting. This turned out to be one of the best frosting experiences for me. Like I shared before, when I make cakes in the summertime, I'm usually melting because I'm so hot. The cake is melting because it's so hot. But then after I was able to let this set overnight, the cake was nice and cold, and it was such a different experience, and definitely something I'll have to keep doing. I'm learning, I'm growing as a baker, and so this is definitely something I'll do the next time I make cakes, because it really, really helped the process along. This turned out so well and it tasted amazing. You could not tell that it was made with freshly milled flour, which was a concern of mine. Most of you know, that you've been following my journey, that one thing I don't want to do is mess up food for my kids. I feel like I worked really, really hard to get them to a point where they enjoy eating the foods that I've been making from scratch. And so when we switched to freshly milled flour, my concern was that, okay, so now here we go. Now I have them used to this flavor. Now I have them used to this texture, and I don't want them veering off from that and turning away from the food. But we understand the benefits of using freshly milled flour, and for the most part, they have been doing really, really well with the transition. But I haven't been making certain things because it's not something we do every day. I don't make cakes every week, so I have not perfected making cakes. But with this being my second time making this, it worked out amazing. Again, it tasted wonderful, and this is definitely a keeper. Alright guys, so here is our completed cake as we got ready for my daughter's birthday party. Thanks for being here today. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to check the description box. I will have any links to any recipes that I used there, and I'll also have a link to my blog if you are interested in freshly milled flour recipes or just regular recipe and meal ideas. Feel free to check my blog. I will have lots of recipes there for you for free that you can save and use in your kitchen. So thanks for being here once again. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel as I continue to grow in this space. Have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you in the next one.